Your first $20,000 is a bloodbath. It is a brutal, soul-crushing grind that most people never survive. But your next 100,000, that is inevitable. Welcome to the hidden blueprint of the elites. Imagine a rocket sitting on a launch pad. To break free from the invisible chains of gravity, it must burn 80% of its fuel in the first few minutes. If it stops even a fraction of a second too early, it falls back to Earth in a ball of fire. This is exactly where you are right now. You are burning your life, your time, and your sanity. Yet you feel like you are standing still. What the banking system and the history books will never tell you is that there is a mathematical escape velocity for your wealth. A threshold where the rules of the game suddenly flip. For the legendary Rothschild family, this was the foundational secret that allowed them to turn a small collection of coins into an empire that bankrolled nations. As we move through the second quarter of 2026, a massive wealth transfer is quietly taking place in the shadows. The middle class is being liquidated by inflation and invisible taxes, while the 1% are resetting the board. They are waiting for you to fail just before you reach the magic number. Today, we are going away from the mainstream financial lies. We are going deep into the Rothschild archives to expose the $20,000 rule. This is not about saving pennies or skipping your morning coffee. This is about reaching the tipping point where your money stops being a tool you work for and starts being a predator that hunts for you. If you are starting from zero in 2026, this is the only path out of the maze.
Educational and historical content only, not financial advice.
The most dangerous period of your life is the journey from zero to $20,000. This is the killing field of ambition. In the archives of the 1%, they do not call this saving. They call it the survival gap. Statistically, it takes the average person twice as long to save their first $20,000 as it does to move from $20,000 to $50,000. This is the great mathematical paradox that keeps 99% of the population in a state of permanent exhaustion. When you are under this threshold, every dollar you earn is under attack. The banking system is designed as a filtration layer. If your balance is low, you are charged fees for not having enough money. You are sold high-interest debt to bridge the gap between paychecks. You are the liquidity that fuels the interest payments of those who have already crossed the line. This is what the Rothschilds understood early on. They saw money not as a medium of exchange, but as a living organism that needs a critical mass to survive. In 2026, this pressure has reached a breaking point. Inflation is a silent thief that steals from those with the least. If you have $5,000 in a standard savings account, the invisible tax of rising costs is eating your future before you can even touch it. You are running on a treadmill that is accelerating every single day. This is why the first $20,000 feels like a bloodbath. It is because you are fighting against a system that is actively trying to reset you to zero. Most people look at their slow progress and assume they are doing something wrong. They blame their job or their luck, but they are missing the fundamental law of wealth. Money has no power until it reaches escape velocity. Until you hit that $20,000 mark, you are not an investor. You are a source of revenue for the elite. To understand why $20,000 is the magic number, we must go back to the year 1815. The air in London was thick with fear. The Battle of Waterloo was raging, and the fate of the British Empire hung in the balance. While the masses were praying for a miracle, Nathan Rothschild was watching his seed capital. The Rothschild family did not become the wealthiest lineage in history by working for an hourly wage. They understood a concept that today's education system has scrubbed from your mind: the sanctity of the first seed. Nathan knew that if he lost his liquid capital during the chaos, he would be reset to zero for another generation. He protected his $20,000 equivalent with the ferocity of a wolf. When the news reached him that Napoleon had been defeated, Nathan did not celebrate like a commoner. He used his positioned wealth to execute a masterstroke on the London Stock Exchange. Because he had reached his own escape velocity, he could buy when everyone else was forced to sell. He had the liquidity to trap the entire market. In 2026, history is repeating itself. We are currently in a period of high volatility where the majority of people are drowning in car payments and credit card interest. They have high incomes, but zero liquid power. They own things that lose value, while the elites own assets that capture it. The Rothschild secret was simple. Never confuse a high salary with wealth. Wealth is the ability to survive without working. If you have $10,000 but owe $15,000 to a bank, you are not halfway to the goal. You are effectively at -5,000. You are a ghost in the financial system. Nathan Rothschild taught his sons that the first 20,000 is not for comfort. It is not for a new carriage or a larger house. It is for the right to sit at the table when the world goes on sale. As we head into the third quarter of 2026, the world is preparing for another sale. If you do not have your seed protected and ready, you will be the one being sold. The true magic of the Rothschild empire was not in their gold, but in their understanding of the invisible gears of compounding. They lived by a secret timeline that the modern world has forgotten, the 2-3-5 rule. This is the moment your wealth transitions from a linear struggle to an exponential explosion. Most people spend their entire lives in the linear phase. They save $1,000. They spend $1,000. They are like a rower fighting against a massive current. But when you reach $20,000 in liquid, non-debt capital, you have officially installed an engine on your boat. This is the escape velocity. In 2026, the cost of living has become a massive gravitational pull. If you are trying to compound $500, the fees and inflation will cancel out your progress before the first year is over. But at 20,000, the math begins to shift in your favor. At this level, a simple 5% return generates $1,000 a year without you lifting a finger. That is $1,000 of pure predator capital that can be sent out to hunt for more. The 2-3-5 rule states that your first 20,000 takes 5 units of effort. Your next 30,000 takes only 3 units. And the final 50,000 to reach your first 100,000? That takes only 2. The effort decreases as the momentum increases. This is why the 1% seem to get richer while doing less. They are not working harder. They are simply riding the momentum of their initial bloodbath. As we look at the market signals for the remainder of 2026, those who are stuck under the $20,000 line are being used as fuel for the system. Their small savings are being devalued to pay for the massive debts of the era. But if you can cross that threshold, you move from being the fuel to being the pilot. You stop fighting the gravity of poverty and start using the vacuum of the elite to pull you upward. The Rothschilds knew that once the snowball starts rolling, no force on earth can stop it. Your only job is to make sure the snowball is large enough to survive the first hill. The final layer of the Rothschild secret is the most uncomfortable truth of all. The reason the $20,000 mark is so difficult to reach is because the entire global financial architecture is built to prevent you from touching it. In 2026, we are seeing the emergence of a 2-tier economic reality. If you have less than $20,000 in liquid assets, you are part of the exit liquidity for the elite. Your small savings are being devalued by central bank policies while you are forced to pay the highest interest rates for the debt you use to survive. The system needs you to stay under that line so it can continue to harvest your labor. This is the modern plantation, and your debt is the invisible chain. The elites, following the 17th century Rothschild blueprint, are doing the exact opposite, while the masses are distracted by the 2026 market crash and the volatility of digital assets. The 1% are quietly moving into deep value. They are using their compound interest to buy up the very world that the middle class is being forced to sell. They understand that during a wealth transfer, cash is not trash, it is a weapon. To break out of this cycle in 2026, you must adopt the 3-step predator strategy. First, you must execute a total freeze on all non-essential debt. Every dollar of interest you pay to a bank is a drop of blood leaving your financial body. Second, you must reach the $20,000 milestone at any cost, even if it means living a life that others find boring or restrictive. Third, once you hit the target, you must refuse to upgrade your lifestyle. This is the moment of maximum danger. Most people, upon seeing $20,000 in their account, immediately buy a liability to celebrate. They reset their own clock back to zero. They fall back into the gravity of the masses. But if you hold, if you stay cold and calculated like the patriarchs of the Rothschild lineage, you will witness a miracle. You will see the system that once hunted you begin to serve you. As we enter the second half of 2026, the gap between those who have reached escape velocity and those who are falling back to Earth will become an unbridgeable canyon. The question is not if the crash is coming. The question is which side of the $20,000 line you will be standing on when the dust settles. The final secret of the Rothschild lineage is not a hidden map or a vault of gold. It is a vow of silence. It is the ability to walk through a world of noise, consumerism, and flashing lights while staying focused on a single, boring number: $20,000. Most people will watch this and return to their old habits. They will continue to fuel the banking system with their interest payments and their fear. They will remain trapped in the gravity of the masses, waiting for a miracle that will never come. But for a few of you, something has shifted today. You have seen the invisible bars of the cage. Understand this clearly. The system does not want you to reach escape velocity. It does not want you to have the liquid power to buy when the world goes on sale in late 2026. It wants you to stay hungry, tired, and compliant. But now, you have the blueprint. You know that the first 20,000 is a bloodbath, but you also know that it is the only price worth paying for true freedom. As we navigate the deep shifts of 2026, your mindset is your only real asset. If you treat your capital as a sacred seed, if you refuse to let the invisible taxes of the era bleed you dry, you will cross the threshold. And once you do, the view from the other side is something they can never describe in the history books. If you are ready to stop being the prey and start becoming the predator in this new economic era, you belong here. Subscribe to Mindset for Wealth and join the 1% who are quietly preparing for the greatest wealth transfer of our time. Do not let the 2026 crash be the end of your story. Make it the moment you finally broke free. The door is open. The math is on your side. All you have to do is survive the launch.